is obesity. Search Cancer Research UK Obesity for the facts.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
Talk Radio, on the hour news headlines.
From the Sky News Centre at midnight. Vladimir Putin has dismissed claims Russia was behind the poisoning of a former double agent and his daughter in Salisbury as nonsense. He's also said Moscow is ready to cooperate with the British government on the investigation into the nerve agent attack. Mr. Putin called what happened to Sergei Skripal a tragedy.
The first thing I thought was if it was a real poison, they would have just died. They wouldn't be in hospital. The second thing, Russia doesn't have any such poisons. We destroyed all our chemical weapons in front of international observers.
Mr. Putin's been declared winner of Russia's presidential election. It looks like he's claimed over 70% of the total votes cast. It means he gets another 6 years in the Kremlin until 2024. Other news, warnings of ice on the roads will continue through the morning's rush hour as the UK continues to be hit by a cold blast. Snow's caused treacherous driving conditions in places, as well as the cancellation of train services and flights. A 22-year-old British man has died in Mallorca after reportedly falling from a fifth-floor balcony. According to reports in a local newspaper, police think he lost his balance at an apartment in Palma, the island's capital. In sport, Leicester are out of the FA Cup after losing their quarter-final to Chelsea in extra time. Jamie Vardy made it 1-1, but Chelsea regained the lead when Pedro scored midway through the additional 30 minutes. Leicester boss Claude Puel says his team were unlucky.
Of course, it's a big disappointment because it was a high-level game against a good team. They played well, but we played very well also with quality. It was a game with a lot of rhythm, good tempo. It was end-to-end the first half.
Chelsea will take on Southampton for a place in the final, while Manchester United and Tottenham have been drawn together in the other last four tie. And Celtic missed the chance to extend their lead at the top of the Scottish Premiership to 12 points. They were held to a goalless draw at Motherwell. The home side had Cedric Kipre sent off in the first half. That's the latest. I'm Charlie Maggs.
The following program contains graphic audio images of the supernatural and scenarios depicting paranormal activity that some listeners may find disturbing. Views expressed in the program are solely those of the presenter and do not in any way reflect the opinions, beliefs, or policies of Talk Radio.
Untwist the lid on Talk Radio's specimen jar of the psychic, the supernatural, and the simply unexplainable. The Unexplained with Howard Hughes on Talk Radio.
Well, we've crossed the Rubicon. It is the midnight hour. We have gone through the threshold, and this is the point in the show where we talk in some detail about some of the more, if I may use this word at this time of night, esoteric subjects that we get into on The Unexplained. Now, a man who I had on my podcast at theunexplained.tv 3 years ago, Garnet Schulhauser, is here now. He was a man who, like some of my guests, divided my audience. You know that there are people who will never buy any of this. I can have people on here who will tell me the most extraordinary stories, and because the people who email me sometimes haven't had those experiences and couldn't imagine a situation where anybody would, they of course instantly reject whatever the guest is saying. Now, I guess one of the things we have to do on The Unexplained is suspend disbelief for a while. And I always say that is it for you or for me to definitively judge whether a thing has or has not happened, and whether indeed it's happened in the form that is being described to us. I think what we're about to do is going to be a little bit of a test here for you. It's a test of whether you will believe and buy into what is a remarkable story. And the person telling the story is not just anybody. This man was a corporate lawyer at the highest level in Canada, who retired from that noble profession, or ignoble some may say, but certainly not me. I may need the services of a lawyer one day, so I'm keeping on their good side. So he retired from the profession and then had the most remarkable, extraordinary experience that led him down a path that I'm guessing, and I think this came out in our last conversation 3 years ago, he would never have thought that he would have travelled down. The man I'm talking about is Garnet Schulhauser. He's the author of a number of books. He's got one out at the moment, which is partly the reason why he's on here now. So, retired lawyer. He's in Victoria, Vancouver Island, Canada, where the weather, I think, is significantly better than it is today here in the UK. And he lives peacefully and ordinarily with his wife, Kathy, apart from one thing. And we're about to talk about that one thing right now. Garnet Schulhauser, nice to talk with you again.
Nice to have you be on your show again, Howard.
All right. I gave a little potted version of your story, Garnet, but it is, you're quite modest about this. But tell me about your lawyer career and the level at which you worked before you retired. I want to set the scene here.
Well, I was a partner in the largest law firm in Western Canada, and I did corporate work. I did mergers and acquisitions, so mergers of the public companies, or when somebody took another company over. So it was a very very intense, very stressful sort of a practice that I had, and I ended up practicing for about 34 years, and then I retired in 2008 and moved to Vancouver Island, where I've been since. So that was the sort of the backdrop for me. I was very much of a stuffed shirt, button-down corporate lawyer.
Okay, and a successful one. Obviously, you don't get to that level without being successful, and doing it for 34 years. That is no mean achievement. So there you are, living in peaceful retirement with this wonderful, glittering career behind you. You said it was a stressful life that you had before, and obviously if you work at that kind of level and you do that kind of job, it's all about results. So, of course, there's going to be stress. Did that stress, and this is material to the things that we will talk about now, ever get to you?
Oh, yes, it did. I mean, it was. I had many sleepless nights. When I'm doing a deal, before the deal completed, lots of sleepless nights. I could get I was very irritable at times with my wife and kids, and just the stress did get to me, and I really needed to take holidays periodically to sort of try to get rid of it. But you never sort of really lose it. I didn't really lose that stress until I retired, after I met Albert, and so and now my life is relatively stress-free. I mean, it's an amazing change, and a change for the better, for sure.
All right, we'll talk about the story of how you met Albert in just a moment, but I wanted to talk about this stress thing. And look, a lot of us experience stress in our lives, and it affects us in various ways. I do. At no stage in your career, and this is a question you can tell me not to ask, and I will happily not ask it, did you ever suffer from anything that might be deemed by a psychiatrist to be a trauma, something that changes the way that you think?
No, nothing eventful at all. It was pretty much of a even course. I mean, there was lots of stress, but there was no sort of significant event in my life until I met Albert.
Okay, I'm doing this for the benefit of those who might be poised over their keyboards to start emailing me now when they hear this story. Because your life changed materially in, I think, 2007, didn't it?
That's right.
Tell me the story of how you met somebody we will come to know through this as Albert.
Well, I was still practicing law, and I was strolling down the street one sunny afternoon in May, and seemingly out of nowhere, a homeless man just jumped in front of me. And he looked like a typical homeless man. He had, long stringy hair and scraggly beard and dirty slept-in clothes. But instead of going around him like I usually did when I met these people, I stopped there because he had these amazing, dazzling blue eyes that were basically sending me what I felt was like a warm gush of unconditional love that was coming towards me, fusing my whole body, making me feel like I was safe and secure and that nothing could ever harm me. So it was an amazing feeling. I stood there like a deer caught in the headlights. For how long, I don't know. And then he broke the spell by saying to me, "Why are you here?" And he promptly disappeared into a nearby store. And when I finally collected my wits, I went into the store to find him. He was nowhere to be seen. I came back out on the street, walked up and down for several blocks hoping to find him, but he had disappeared into thin air. So the very next day, I resolved to try to find him. Went back to the same street, same time, hoping to spot this man. And I walked up and down the street for several blocks, 15 minutes. I was about to turn around and go back to my office.
All right, I'm sorry for interrupting. Why did you, look, if something like that happened to me, and I meet people all the time who I think, well, that's a nice person, didn't expect to meet that person, but they drift on through my life and we all move on. We have to. Why did you go back?
Because I was very curious. This guy was very unusual. He had these amazing eyes that really did something special to me, and I really needed to go back and find out who he was. I mean, obviously he wasn't an ordinary homeless man. I needed to find out who he was, so that's why I went back. It was burning curiosity to find out who was he.
Mm-hmm. And so day 2, you go back to the same place, you look in the same areas. What transpires?
Well, I was about to give up because I couldn't see him, and then I spotted him sitting all alone on a bench. So I walked up to him and I said, "Who are you? Why did you stop me the other day?" He said, "I'm a soul just like you. I'm here to help you on your journey and answer your questions." And so my skeptical lawyer brain, of course, as I mentioned before, sort of kicked in then, and I thought, I said to him, why do you think you could help me? Because you look like you can't even help yourself.
Well, I have to say, I would be, and you have a show in that country that used to run in this country called Candid Camera. You have a similar show in Canada that's still running. If that happened to me, I'd be looking for the camera.
Never occurred to me, but he was just he was the center of attention. He was a very special kind of guy. So I never even thought about that. But I did challenge him as to how he thought he could help me, and he said, well, looks can be deceiving because you look like you're a successful corporate lawyer with everything under control, but we both know that's just a facade. So he said, fine, turn around and go back to your office. No harm done, or you can sit down and have a chat with me for half an hour.
He said to you, we've got to get this very clear. He said to you without knowing you, without, as we say here in the UK, without knowing you from Adam, he said, you're a successful corporate lawyer.
No, he said, you think that you're a successful corporate lawyer with everything under control.
Well, how would he know that you're a successful corporate lawyer?
He knows everything about me. As I soon found out, because of who he was, he knew everything about me. He knew my history. He knew everything I had done. So he knew exactly where I was in this particular time in my journey.
So this was your Morgan Freeman moment.
I guess it was, yeah.
I have this dream that one of these days, in the murk and stress and occasional misery of life, interspersed with occasional light moments, of course, that I will walk into a park near where I live, and sitting there will be Morgan Freeman dressed in a white suit. And he will tell me that from now on, everything's going to be all right. You had that experience, you say.
Yeah, exactly. And once I got into the conversation, he told me that he was one of my spirit guides in disguise. I was the only one who could see him. And he said, I'm here to help you. And so away we went. And he was so convincing, such a calm, soothing, wise voice that to me it was just like, I have to just have a dialogue with this guy. I bought into it right away. There was no doubt in my mind that he was who he said he was. And so away we went.
No doubt in your mind?
No, there was no doubt. After the 5 minutes into the conversation, there was no longer any doubt.
That's a big, big story. I mean, what was going on with you at the time? What sort of cases were you handling at the time? How were you getting on in the office? Was everything hunky-dory at work at that point? I know you were coming up to your retirement at that point, but was everything hunky-dory?
Yeah, it was hunky-dory. For the life of me, I can't remember what I was working on, and if I did, I couldn't give you any names anyway, because it's confidential. But everything was fine. I was having it was in the prime of my career, and everything was just going along hunky-dory, as you say. I wasn't disturbed about anything. I wasn't having a nervous breakdown. None of that. I was just as sane as you are right now, Howard.
Because many people would question that, Garnet, let me tell you for a starter. But leaving that aside just for the moment, hopefully it won't be an issue within the next 30 minutes. But so there you are. You meet a person who tells you they know everything about you, and you feel an empathy with them that presumably you make it sound so matter of fact now, but it mustn't have felt that way then, must it?
Well, it actually did. I mean, as I said, the first 5 minutes, I was sort of, my lawyer brain was sort of wondering what's going on. But then once I got into the conversation, it was just like it just all flowed smoothly. He was very calming, very convincing. And after that, I had no doubt whatsoever. And, the more that time went on, the more that was reinforced that this guy was a special guy. He was from the spirit world, and he came here to answer my questions. So I had no doubt about it.
And you had no missing time, no lack of consciousness for any period of time, nothing like that?
No, not that I can recall. Everything just seemed to, there was no gap in the time anywhere.
Before this happened to you, did you believe in aliens, fairies, UFOs, the Bermuda Triangle?
I didn't believe in fairies or spirits, so to speak. I did believe in UFOs because I really did believe that we were visited by ETs from other planets. But I didn't know about spirit guides. I didn't know I had a spirit guide. So all of that was new to me after I met Albert.
And did you tell anybody about that at the time it happened? Did you go back to the office and say, do you know what? I've just been out to buy myself a sandwich and a cup of coffee. And I met this guy. I thought he was, hobo, first of all, if that's not a dated term. And then I discovered he's a most remarkable person who knows everything about me. And he's, in fact, my spirit guide. Can you believe that, guys? Did you do that?
Hell no. There's no way I would have done that.
I wonder why.
Just to demonstrate that I was still sane was that there was no way I was going to tell my partners or my clients what I had just encountered. I kept it to myself, didn't even tell my wife or my kids. I didn't tell my wife until several years later because I was afraid of their reaction, that they would think that I'd lost my mind.
And nothing else in your life, I'm sorry to probe this, but I'm just doing this on behalf of people poised over their keyboards right now. Nothing else in your life was amiss or awry?
No, everything was just tickety-boo. Everything was fine. There was nothing unusual happening in my life, other than I was kind of tired of practicing law and was sort of looking towards when I should retire. But that's just the natural for anybody in that business.
So the next thing that most of us would think, then, having had that experience, is, apart from the thought of, am I okay, and you assure me that you were okay, is, how has this happened to me?
Yes, that was one of the big questions. And Albert, when I asked that question, he just said, look, we won't get into it in detail, but you were chosen beforehand to be one of Albert's messengers. He has many messengers. I was just one of them, and I was chosen beforehand. And Albert chose the time and the place when he thought it was appropriate, when I would be able to just accept him for who he was. And he said later, if he had come 10 years earlier, I probably just would have walked around and ignored him. I was ready for it, and he knew it.
In what way?
I was ready to have somebody new come into my life to answer the questions. I was ready to change my path. I was tired of practicing law. I wanted to have a new path, but I had no idea what that path would be. So Albert basically popped in, and we had this dialogue. And then early on, he said to me, guess what? I'm not just here to satisfy your curiosity. I want you to write a book about what I tell you, my revelation, so everyone can have access to it. So therefore, he's saying, okay, I'm answering your questions, but you have to write a book about it. So That was quite a surprise to me.
Now, if this was some kind of dream or illusion, I guess it would be difficult to ask specific conscious questions of that entity that is facing you. But from what I understand, you did, didn't you? I mean, the first thing I would do is say, who are you, dude? Where are you from?
That's exactly what I did. I did ask questions. I asked that. Who are you? Where you're from? What are you doing? We went through all that, and he explained it all to me. And then we went on to the bigger questions. I would ask him the big questions of life, like, well, who am I, and what's my purpose, and what happens to me when I die? And he went through all of that and many other questions that popped up. And so it was a dialogue. It was a Q&A. I'd ask questions, he'd answer. And I just made notes of it and ended up in my first book.
Right. And he wanted you specifically to write a book so that other people would know that those experiences can happen. And yet, they haven't happened to me. I mean, I'd love to have an experience like that. I'd love someone to come and tell me what the point of it all is, because, I spend most of my time trying to work it out, and so do most of us. Why do most of us not have this experience? Did Albert explain that?
He said that there's only a few people that are chosen to have this sort of a direct experience, so they don't sort of appear to everyone, on the planet the way that he did to me. And so there's just a few people who have that. I'm not sure exactly why I was chosen, but he just said that I was chosen ahead of time. And most people, they do have communications from their spirit guides, except they don't recognize them. They're not sort of a direct dialogue, so you get subtle messages. Most people don't hear them or just ignore them. So you do hear from your spirit guides, Howard, but maybe you're just not sort of paying enough attention to discern them from all the other thoughts that churn through your mind. So.
Well, I think that's a possibility, How do you think, did Albert give you any kind of handle as to the ways that us ordinary people do hear from our spirit guides? Do they leave coins on the floor? Do they whisper in our ear from time to time? What do they do? What are the signs that most of us miss?
Well, they do all that. It's a whisper in your mind. It's an intuitive thought that flashes into your mind. It's a gut feeling. It's a coincidental event. We all have coincidental events. We think, wow, that's a real coincidence, but it's not. That's the way your guides are giving you a message. But then you have to sort of figure out, okay, what exactly are they telling me? And one of the best ways to better hear your messages is through meditation. Quiet your mind, sit quietly, meditate, get rid of all the other thoughts, and then their thoughts will start to flow in. And the more you do it, the better you will become at listening to their messages.
Did you meditate before you met Albert?
Yeah, I did, but I wasn't very successful at it, and I don't think I was. I didn't sort of get any sort of messages that I could discern from my guides, because I didn't even know I had guides. So I meditated just to sort of relieve the stress, but I wasn't expecting to hear any messages. And as far as I could tell, I didn't get any consciously, although I'm sure I was getting them from my spirit guide. With Albert, it was easy. He just popped into my life and just spoke like you and I are speaking right now.
An amazing story. The man we're speaking with is Garnet Schulhauser. He's written a number of books about his journey with Albert, his spirit guide. Now, that may sound crazy to you, but we are going to explore this a little bit more here on The Unexplained, and we're going to find reasons why Garnet Schulhauser, who we're speaking with, believes this happened, and also is able to verify that with knowledge that he was given by Albert, which has been published in his books, including the first one, which I did an interview with him about a couple of years ago. So, Garnet Schulhauser in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. More from him in just a moment here on The Unexplained. Stay there.
Talk Radio, the 21st century dream team of dialogue, debate and discourse.
Talk Radio. Give it some lip.
£1 could buy you a couple of minutes at the hairdresser's, or a handful of cinema popcorn, or £1 could buy you a Thunderball ticket for a chance to win £500,000. Bit of a no-brainer, really. Thunderball, only from the National Lottery. For just £1, you could win £500,000. Why not play this Tuesday? Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Listen up, Winston Wolfe here. I'd like you to imagine this. You arrive home early. Everything is peachy. And as you look down at your firstborn smiling face, you know this moment was worth the wait. Then you look up and see you've had a severe leak and a hole the size of Hawaii. Good news is you're with Direct Line. They'll get to work within 24 hours before you can say Incy Wincy Spider.
Severe leak, van agreed, and into action within 24 hours. Can your home insurance do that? Exclude Highlands and Islands. Extreme weather conditions may extend response time. £350 water excess supplies.
Over 50% of UK businesses pay their employees through Sage Payroll. It's easy to set up and helps you stay compliant with workplace and pension regulations. Pay your employees in seconds, and for real peace of mind, you can speak to our experts when you need help most. Accounting, payroll and payments. Sage Business Cloud takes care of it all. Visit sage.com/get started. Be Sage. Build on.
Right now at Wren Kitchens, get a Zanussi dishwasher for only £199 when you buy 5 or more fully assembled units. Hurry, offer ends 8 p.m. tonight.
There are so many things that you can take away from the experience.
I learned that I was very much a leader.
I now have confidence to say, this is me, this is who I am. I definitely think that NCS helps people find their passions.
It's made me a more outgoing person.
The adventure, meeting new people, new experiences.
It's the best feeling.
It's completely changed my life.
I am a more confident individual as a result. It's amazing. I wouldn't change any moment of it. I feel powerful, incredible,
unstoppable. Search NCS to find out more.
The Unexplained with Howard Hughes on Talk Radio.
Garnet Schulhauser in Canada is here. He met Albert in 2007, his spirit guide who changed his life. It's a big story, Garnet. People are probably having a little bit of trouble taking it all in, but you said something to me that I need to unpick and explore to a big extent. You said that he explained to you a number of important questions, which are the ones that all of us ask. The purpose of life, for example, and what happens when we die. What did Albert say to you about that?
What happens when we die? We all go back to the spirit side from where we came before we incarnated as a human. The spirit side is our true home. It's a lovely place. Religion's called heaven. I don't like that term because it's too religious, but it's a wonderful place. No pain and suffering. You don't have to. You're beings of energy over there. You don't have to eat, drink, breathe, do any of the stuff that humans have to do. And there's nothing but unconditional love there. So it's just a wonderful place.
Okay, that's a very good point my producer's just made to me here. Why are we here then? If over there is so good, what are we doing here? Is this penance?
No, we come here by our own choice because all souls want to grow and evolve, and so we choose to incarnate here. We pick our lives basically. We pick the place we're going to be born, who our parents are, first language, first school we go to, and who our siblings and friends and so on. We pick that. We set up the whole scheme for our life. We pick that for a purpose. We want to go through life and encounter certain challenges and learn certain lessons so that thereby we can grow and evolve as a soul. So it's a school. We want to come to their school because it's going to advance our evolution. And we know that when the school is over, when our bodies die, we go back to where we came from. And then we can decide, do I want to do another incarnation, or should I just skip it and say to heck with planet Earth? It's entirely our choice. We come here by our own free volition.
Many mystics and religions as well have talked about exactly what you've talked about. The idea that there is a wonderful afterlife, or a wonderful eternity, heaven, whatever you want to call it, and that we actually voluntarily choose to come here and be tested. And we choose to come here to grow because it's also nice there, but we're not. It's rather like having that job where, you know, it's very nice. You like everybody. Going in every day is just fine, and it's not very stressful, but it's not challenging you. And you say that coming back here and picking your parents and picking your school experience and picking everything else allows your spirit, your soul, whatever it is, to grow.
That's exactly right. We set up challenges for ourselves. We want to sort of basically test our mettle to see whether or not we can go through that challenge without going off course or letting our negative emotions get out of control. So it's a number of tests and challenge and lessons that we choose for ourselves. What we plan beforehand, our life plan is not etched in stone, so that because we have free will here, we often go off course, and sometimes we miss a challenge. Sometimes we react differently than we think we should, in a challenge, and that's just all part of a life on Earth. And so then when you finish this life, you go look at it and say, okay, did I hit all my challenges? Did I miss some? Okay, I'm going to go back and hit the ones that I missed. So it's not predestined. There's a lot of different things going on, and your free will dictate sort of where you go in terms of, do you fulfill all your challenges? Do you meet them all head on, or do you skirt some of them and go ahead and try to find an easy avenue in that life?
Is it possible to make the choice to stay in the nice place and not to come back here?
Yes, you can stay there as long as you want. You don't have to incarnate here or anywhere else. But there, your evolution is not going to be as fast. I mean, you can watch what's happening on Earth, but it's like book learning, and you don't really learn thoroughly until you jump in and have a real life experience. And so, yeah, you can stay there as long as you want. But most souls are keen to just jump in and meet the challenge because they know it's really, in terms of their time, where there's no linear time, it's really like the blink of an eye for an 80-year life on Earth.
And what you've just said won't be any great surprise to anybody who follows or is part of a religion like Hinduism, where exactly that's the point. The great aim is to reach eternity. If you evolve to the point where you can go there and stay there, then that's great. That's your ultimate aim. But it's going to take you a number of lives and quite a lot of experience, some of it not very nice, to get there.
Yeah, that's typical. To evolve to the point where you're happy with where you are, you have to go through a number of incarnations on the denser planes, like Earth School. There's a number of other planets you can go to, different life forms, but it's all a matter of experiencing the tough lessons of life in a physical environment. And every time you do one of these, you grow more and you evolve more, and your path is just upward and onward. You can never sort of slide back. That's what every soul wants to do.
Albert told you a lot. Did you have regular meetings with him, and where did you go? Did you take him to McDonald's? How did you do this?
The first three meetings we had, he appeared in physical form, and the first one was the first two were on the street. Next one was in my backyard one afternoon when no one is around. Then after that, he no longer appeared in physical form. He just was a voice in my head. We communicated by telepathy, so he never physically appeared again. And when I asked him, why did you show up as a homeless man initially, he said, well, I had to ease you into the conversation, because had I just out of the blue started talking to you as a voice in your head, you likely would have thought you were losing your mind. So that was his way of introducing himself to me.
Well, obviously, voices in the head is sometimes a sign of very serious mental illness.
Yes.
So I guess you were mindful of that. So Albert, literally, so Albert did that bit right. Did Albert ever explain to you then why it is necessary for us to get older, a subject quite close to my heart at the moment, why sometimes at the end of life people have to suffer before they pass on, and some people say you go to oblivion, other people, as you would say, go to something better to prepare for something else? Why is it we have to go through that process of getting older, sometimes becoming infirm, and then ultimately dying?
That's just all part of being a human on this planet. And other life forms, they go through life differently. They don't age; they just exit when they're ready to go. But a human on Earth, that was the way it was designed. So you're born and you grow up and then you age and then eventually you die. That's just part of the vehicle trip that the humans have to undergo. You know that before you incarnate, so you know exactly what's going to happen, and you just have to. I mean, that's just it goes with the turf. If you're going to be a human, this is what happens to you.
But I would have asked him, why's it got to be that way?
Well, it doesn't. I mean, it's that way for humans, but if you don't like the way humans progress through life, you don't have to incarnate as a human. You can incarnate somewhere else or incarnate as an eagle or whatever the heck you want to do. It's your choice. But that's just the way humans have evolved on the physical plane, and that's just the way it is. And they could change that, but it's sort of like we'll let things evolve and unfold on Earth the way they have been. And we're not just going to modify it because some souls don't want to go through a human experience of aging, because it's your choice whether you come in or not.
At what stage did you tell your wife?
It was probably 2 or 3 years after I met Albert, and I had been sort of secretly writing the manuscript for my book, and I thought, gosh, at some point I'm going to tell her. So I just gently eased her into it and said, I'm writing a book. And she said, yeah, well, that's great. And then I said, well, I'm writing a book about Albert, my spirit guide. And she said, well, okay. And so then I thought, well, fine. I guess she wasn't going to challenge me or think I had gone crazy. She's actually very psychic herself. And so she had no problem at all with the fact that I was speaking with a spirit guide. So anyway, so that was a relief. But then after I'd written my manuscript, I still was very fearful of what my former colleagues and clients would say. And so I had a tough decision. Should I just throw this manuscript in the drawer, or should I actually get it published? And in the end result, I decided to get it published. And so I know a lot of my former acquaintances, some of them think that I've gone senile early, and that's fine. They can believe what they want. But I'm going to carry on.
And of course, you say that you've done 130 interviews. The first one that you did with me was one of them. So it's not something you can keep quiet. If you publish a book and you do interviews about it, you become a marked man. People know who you are, and you have to stand by what you said.
Absolutely, and I'm quite willing to go down that path. And the people who think I'm crazy, that's fine. They can have their own belief. But I've met a lot of spiritually minded people since I published my books who I've befriended and who I have communication with, and so overall I've gained a lot more friends than I lost by virtue of publishing my book. So it's a very much of a plus thing for me.
Well, when you appeared on my podcast, you split the audience right down the middle. There were people who said, good on Garnet Schulhauser for talking about this. And there were people who said, this man is absolutely crazy and needs to get help. That's the way that it was for me, and I'm guessing that's partly the way it's been for you.
Yes, with my previous acquaintances, that's probably about right. It was split down the middle. Most of the people who think I've lost my mind don't really say that to my face or send me an email to that effect. They just quit talking to me, but I know what they're thinking. And then the other people who do support me, I've gotten lots of great emails from my former law partners saying, good on you that you had the courage to come out of the spiritual closet and do what you did. And so, yeah, it's mixed, but I fully expected that.
If it had been me, and it's easy for me to say this because I haven't had the experience, one of the first things, it wouldn't necessarily be the first thing I would have asked Albert, is to prove it to me, is to tell me something that is about to transpire, or give me a piece of knowledge that I couldn't have had ordinarily. For example, I don't know, buried in your garden is, somebody buried some gold coins 200 years ago in the bottom of your garden. You couldn't know that, but Albert could tell you.
Yeah, I mean, I have had a discussion with Albert about that, but he says, look, his purpose is to give me some wisdom, some revelations from the spirit side, so I can write about it in my book. He says, I'm not about to get into this game of trying to prove that I'm real or that I'm a spirit or about the things that I'm about to show you or tell you. He says that's not the game. He says, I could float down in front of Times Square, float down and hover above Times Square as a homeless man and tell everyone, look, here I am. You can take pictures of me. You can record me. And you know what? Most of the people will think it was a Hollywood stunt. So he just says, we're not into that game. People will eventually, once science catches up to where into a more developed state, they'll be able to actually perceive and measure spirits on the spirit side, but you're not there yet. And he said they're not going to waste time trying to do that sort of a proof, because no matter what you do, there's going to be scientists or other people who are going to say that was just faked. It's a Hollywood stunt, and we don't believe it. So they're not. He said we're not going to waste our time doing that. People can either believe what I'm telling you, or they can disbelieve it. Entirely up to them.
Are there other Alberts? You indicated at the beginning of this that there are others from where Albert came from, and maybe guiding other people.
Oh, absolutely. There's lots of spirit guides. Everyone has 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 spirit guides that are with them 24/7. They're like your coaches. They're always there with you. They do change over time as your life progresses, but everyone has spirit guides. Every human does, and their job is to coach you, send you messages, try to steer you in the right direction. So there's lots of quote Alberts around. Albert is every soul is unique in their own way. But there are many like Albert that are helping humans. Have been raised since day one. They've always been around.
Have you been in contact with Albert today?
Not today, no.
When was the last time?
He takes Sunday off.
He takes Sunday off. Well, I'm pleased to hear it. I hope he fills his time wisely. What was the last encounter you had?
It was a couple of weeks ago. I had a short conversation with him. I was I can't remember what we said, but it was like I often talk to him about the radio shows I go on, and he sort of gives me some words of encouragement so that I don't flub it and make a mess of the show. And so I think it was probably I didn't make a note of it, but it was probably a couple of weeks ago. I don't talk to him every day on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. It's not sort of that relationship. But if I have a question for him that I think he might be able to answer, I will ask him the question. But he doesn't, and when he's giving me or taking me on the Astral adventures, he never tells me when he's coming. I don't know. He just shows up, and he won't tell me the agenda, and that's just the way. He's very inscrutable at times, which is frustrating. But that's just the way he does it, and I've learned to accept it.
You talk in the book about these astral travels you go on with Albert. It always reminded me of, have you seen that Christmas movie, the animation The Snowman? It almost seems that Albert appears to you like the snowman in that animation, grabs you by the hand, and then takes you off onto the astral plane. That's what it sounds like.
Well, I haven't seen the movie, but that's exactly what happens. When he does come, he just shows up in my bedroom and says, come on, grabs my astral hand, let's go. We float up through the ceiling, up into space, and we end up either going to other places in the universe or to the spirit side of wherever he wants to take me that day. And so it just happens like that. And with him as my tour guide, so to speak, it's quite easy. I can't do it on my own. I've tried. I have not been able to astral travel without him. So I guess that's I just have to wait for him whenever I'm going to experience travel on the astral plane.
I suppose it's a good opportunity for verification, though. If he says, I'm going to take you to Kathmandu today, or I'm going to take you to Los Angeles, presumably you will see things there, and those are things that are happening in those places on that particular day. Have you ever tried to verify things you have seen when you've been flying?
Oh yeah. I mean, sometimes some of the events I've seen, then I can, when I get back into my body the next day, I can some of those things, the events are actually on a newscast. So to me, it's like, okay, yeah, I've already seen that, and now they're just describing what had happened.
So you've had precognition?
Yes, yeah.
Can you tell me about any of the events?
Not offhand. I can't remember anything that sticks in my mind. But there was one occasion when there was he took me to, in Africa. He took me to a field where there was a bunch of elephants that had been killed, poisoned by cyanide by poachers, and he took me to see that. And later on, I saw a TV sort of a documentary where they actually showed a scene from what I had seen on the television where these elephants had all been killed by cyanide with a bunch of poachers, and they did that, of course, to saw off the ivory. But so that's just one example.
Okay, Garnet Schulhauser we're talking with. This is The Unexplained. I know it sounds like a pretty big story, but we're going to get into the points of his latest book, Dance of Eternal Rapture, where he meets, he says, with Albert, some of the most important figures not only of religion but of all history. We'll hear more about that in just a moment, here on The Unexplained. Stay there.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Cast your mind back. Were you ever contacted out of the blue for a pension review? Were you advised to move your work or personal pension into a SIP, self-invested personal pension?
Yes, I was.
You could be due thousands if you were missold. Money Redress are trusted claims specialists in pension and investment mis-selling who manage the whole claim for you on a no-win, no-fee basis, so you can't lose. Call Money Redress on 0800 520 2020.
So there's 20% off everything? Right. In-store and online? Right. Whoa! And you're open from 7 a.m? Right again. Oh, that's great. Anyway, where are your dust sheets? Down there, on the... Right!
With 20% off everything in-store and online from Monday the 19th of March to Saturday the 24th of March, you'll be happy talking to Dulux Decorator Centre. Dulux Decorator Centre, centred on you. Terms and conditions apply.
Frank's accidental Easter salmon.
My wife loves salmon. Last year on Good Friday, I thought I'd surprise her by cooking a whole one, so I popped down to Tesco. The thing is, though, I'm not exactly the greatest cook, and I managed to break it in two. So, in a moment of panic, I wrapped it in puff pastry, and voila, salmon Wellington. I'm doing it again this year.
Make your own Easter fish course with our deliciously fresh and responsibly sourced salmon. Food Love Stories, brought to you by Tesco.
Hello, I'm your smoke alarm. I'm just hanging out up here on the ceiling. Could you possibly get up here and test me by pressing my button? I meant kind of like now. You seem to spend a lot of time pressing buttons on your phone. But can your phone wake you and your family up in the night to save your lives? Because I can, if I'm working. So remembering to test me is crucial. How about we take it from the top? Hello, I'm your smoke alarm. Please test me now.
Smoke alarms. They need to work to keep you safe. Press to test. Monthly is best.
The voice of reason is on Talk Radio.
Hello, I'm James Whale.
Get in the ring with the legendary James Whale.
When I say hang on, will you shut up?
The radio presenter who isn't afraid to tell you what to think.
Quite frankly, this is the most ridiculously stupid idea I've ever heard.
Hard-boiled conversation from the man with the pinball smile and the cue ball head.
This man needs to be called to account. So where is he? Can we get his home number and ring him?
All hail the whale.
I'm being over rude, I know.
The James Whale Show.
Tonight from 7 on Talk Radio. The Unexplained with Howard Hughes on Talk Radio.
Howard Hughes, The Unexplained. Monday morning it is now. Garnet Schulhauser in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. We're going to talk, Garnet, now about the new book, Dance of Eternal Rapture. Why the title?
The title is a sort of a ritualistic dance I saw on the spirit side that Albert took me to, and it was sort of up high on a hill, and this group of three very evolved, advanced souls, they were all members of the Council of Wise Ones. They had evolved to the point where they were going to merge into the source, and so they did sort of a dance in a circle, and then all of a sudden this ball of light came down, and they sort of just went up and merged into it. And Albert said that was called the Dance of Eternal Rapture.
Okay, the Council of Wise Ones.
Yes.
Okay.
They're a council of very wise, advanced souls on the spirit side, and their job is to oversee all the incarnations on our planet. And so when people are going to incarnate into say, a human, they will go over their life plan and give them comments, suggestions about whether it's too tough, too easy, and so they give advice, but they can't dictate what happens. So that's their job, is to see what's happening on planet Earth and all the incarnations. And they're very wise. They no longer need to incarnate on Earth. They're way beyond that. They've learned all their lessons. And so then these three people decided that it was time to do the merger into the source, and that's what they did through the Dance of Eternal Rapture.
Wow, so there's a hierarchy even up there.
Well, not a hierarchy like we think. There are souls that are more advanced, but it's not like sort of a king and prince and and various lords that you might see on Earth, where it's one is better and more exalted than the other. Everyone's equal over there. And Albert says, a student in grade 12 is not better than a student in kindergarten. They're just more advanced, and that's how the souls over there look at it. They don't lord over. An advanced soul doesn't lord over the fact that they're more advanced than another soul. They're just all equal and we're all developing at different paces. And so it's not a hierarchy in that sense.
Okay, now in this book, tell me if I'm right, this is the book where you meet Jesus, you meet a whale, you meet the spirit of Earth. Is this so?
Yes, I did have. Yes, that all happened. It wasn't a whale in this book. In the last book, it was a dolphin. But I did have a conversation with Gaia, the consciousness of Mother Earth, and I did meet Jesus. Yes, and had another conversation with him. All very fascinating. I can tell you what happened if you wish me to go into that.
I'd be interested to know what it was like to meet Jesus.
Well, he appeared to me in a form that we've seen in a lot of medieval paintings of him, their conception of him, and he was, sort of like long brown hair, brown eyes, wearing a robe, very wise and compassionate spirit. He's a master soul. He incarnated on Earth not because he needed to learn anything, but he was there to help humans, and he was there to help people become more spiritually enlightened. And so because he was a master soul, he had learned to focus his thoughts into very powerful beams of energy, because thoughts are really energy. And if you become good at it, you can really focus your thoughts. That's how he performed his miracles. That's how he could walk on water and turn water into wine and do the other things the other miracles that have been attributed to him. And so that was his mission, to try to turn around humanity. He hoped that there would be a religion that would sort of follow him. There was, called Christianity. So that part was all good. He was quite dismayed, though, at some of the Christianity to some degree had sort of gone off course, and that the men who followed him, who developed the hierarchy, the rules, the dogma of the church, had gone off base, and he was really dismayed at the fact that they tried to control people through fear by telling them that there's a hell, telling them there's a devil, and he said that's all false. None of those exist. And he said it's caused a lot of grief, a lot of anxiety among people over the ages. People would be awake at night thinking, gosh, I hope I don't go to hell because it's an awful place. And he wished they could have done it differently.
There's a section in the Bible where there are only two words, and those words are Jesus wept. And that is an indication, I think, in the Bible of a despair on the part of Jesus. Did he, when you spoke to him, talk about what it was like on Earth now? In other words, was he despairing of the way that we are running things here?
Oh, absolutely. He said that his whole intention was to spread the message of love and compassion, forgiveness among people. And he just shakes his head and says, look, you humans, you look what you're doing now. So many people are running amok, causing violence, wars, terrorist acts, mass shootings. And he said this is not what he had hoped would transpire. And he said, you're really no better off than the people were back when I walked the earth. In fact, some ways you're worse, because you have weapons that could kill more people a lot faster than they did back then. And he's really dismayed, and he dismayed with the fact that the church has gone off base, and so he's really not happy with what's happening here.
And how does that all square with the stuff we were talking about before, where Albert had told you that everybody has their life plan, and as we go through this mortal coil, suffering when we have to, and ultimately getting old and maybe suffering before we leave. Those things you talked about are not good experiences. Of course they're not. The mass shootings that we've seen, the people who are misguided and do misguided kind of things. Surely that if Jesus was part of this plan that you talked about and Albert talked to you about, then those things wouldn't happen.
Well, yeah, except that Jesus isn't allowed to, as much as he'd like to change things, he's not allowed to sort of come and just fix everything with a magic bullet. That's not what he can't do that. The council won't let him. I said to him, would you like to incarnate back on earth and try to help us now in this mess? And he said, yes, waiting for the council of wise ones to say, yeah, this is the time. And so, yeah, the council and the people on the spirit side, they could just fix everything immediately.
Why don't they?
Well, because that'll make it too easy. The Earth is a school that helps souls grow and evolve through very tough challenges and lessons. If we take all that away, it's sort of like, okay, who wants to incarnate on Earth anymore? We have to find somewhere else. So they're leaving it as a school, a tough school for souls. And so we have to work out our own problems. And if we can't, as humans, work out our own problems, we can end up destroying ourselves. And they just have to sort of stand back and watch that. Although they are trying to send messages to us, to humanity, to try to stop that, but they realize if push comes to shove and we decide to have a nuclear war, it's going to happen.
They'd let that happen.
They would, yeah.
Where do UFOs and aliens come into this?
Well, they've been watching and visiting Earth for eons, you know, and they're very real. They travel from different planets, different star systems, and they're here as benevolent observers of what's going on. They want us to get over this rough patch we're in, so that we don't kill ourselves before and destroy our planet before we sort of take the next step up. And so they're there to help us. They send us subtle thoughts sometimes, you know, flashes of intuition to help us with our technology, to help us out where they can. But again, they're under a directive that they can't sort of step in and destroy all of our weapons. They could. They have advanced technology. They could just take away all of our weapons, and then we'd have nothing to fight with. But they're not allowed to interfere to that extent. They have to sort of let things on our planet evolve as they will, with some subtle help here and there, but nothing sort of direct and dramatic as destroying all of our weapons. And so.
And did Albert tell you that?
Yes, he told me that. Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, I can understand why you might have an encounter with Jesus, because obviously there is a significant figure in many people's lives. Elvis Presley was also significant, but not in anything like a similar kind of way. Of course, loads of people were aware of him and his music. You say, and this is where some people might lose you on this particular journey, that you met Elvis.
Yes, I mean, he's, you know, he left his body, he went over to the spirit side, there he is. And things are quite, I mean, there's a lot of things there that are quite normal for us. I mean, there's concerts, there's lectures, there's recreational activities. So Elvis does put on concerts, and the souls over there.
Elvis is gigging on the other side.
Absolutely. And so are the Beatles. Wow. So is Mozart.
I've seen
not
all of them, exactly. Not all of them. John might be, and George might be. But it would certainly be news to
passed on are there. Yeah.
There'll be certainly be news to Paul and Ringo, I suspect.
They're not there yet, but George and John did put on a concert. Elvis did a concert by Mozart. These people, they just like entertaining other souls the way they did on Earth, and it's great. They have this wonderful sort of big amphitheater, open air, and people just flock there to listen to these concerts. It's just one of the enjoyable aspects of being on the spirit side, is you can still partake in some of the things you enjoyed back on Earth.
If I met Elvis, I would have a zillion questions for him. You know, I wasn't the biggest fan of all of his music, but he did make some great tunes. I would have loads of things to ask him. What were you like when you met Elvis?
Well, I was sort of in admiration. I was sort of a bit stunned. I didn't know what to say. So I sort of just stood there staring at him for a while, and eventually, but he sort of warmed up and he got me going. And so I did ask him questions, you know, the obvious one, like, well, what happened to you? And the short answer, which is no surprise, is that he said he just got involved with drugs and prescription drugs and alcohol, and he sort of went into a downward spiral. He really wanted to sort of, towards the end, he wanted to get out of the entertainment gig, but he felt so much pressure from his fans, from his handlers to keep on going, that he sort of had to keep pushing himself. And then to relieve the anxiety and the stress, he kept on having more drugs and more alcohol, and it was just a death spiral. And he wishes that he had done something differently. He wishes actually that he had retired early on, and so that he could have got out of that death spiral, and maybe he would still be alive today. But
maybe he should have called it a day in 1968 when he did the big gig, you know, the big TV concert. Was he surprised to see you? Was he wondering what you were doing there?
No, because Albert had prepped him that I was going to come for a visit, and that I was actually writing a book, and so he sort of was expecting me, and so I was no surprise to him. But we just had a great conversation, and before we had the conversation, actually, I listened to his concert, some of his all-time greatest hits, exactly how I remember them from Earth, and it was very entertaining, and so was everyone else in the stadium. It was really quite a show.
Okay. Elvis was always rumoured, always said by people who met him, encountered him. Of course, he never came to the UK, sadly. But people who encountered him always said how tremendously courteous he was. Did he walk up to you and say, very pleased to meet you, sir?
Absolutely. He was very courteous. Yeah, very courteous. Put me at ease. Wasn't arrogant or condescending in the least bit. He was just like a good old boy from southern U.S., from Memphis, that just had hit the stardom and had a lot of fame, but he was very down to earth.
Straight off the bus from Tupelo. Is he making new music?
You know, that I don't know. All I heard.
Did you not ask him? You didn't. You met Elvis Presley and you didn't say, have you got some new tunes?
there was a lot of questions after after I was back on Earth that I wished I had asked him. So I didn't ask him that one. But in his concert, they were all the ones that I was familiar with. So I don't know if he's making new music.
And did he give you any facts about himself that have not been chronicled in books and documentaries heretofore?
Not that I know of, no. I mean, I think pretty much the history that he gave me is pretty much already chronicled. He didn't give you anything new or special. So there's no magic bullet here, Howard. I know what you're looking for, but I didn't get it.
And you're sure you were not just having a dream?
Absolutely. It was very vivid. When I wake up after my astral trips, everything in there is very vivid. It's not like a dream. All my dreams, they fade in 2 hours. These encounters were fresh in my memory for several weeks afterwards, just vivid, clear. So I know they're not dreams because none of my dreams last like that. So I really did experience it.
One of the people I would have expected to meet if I was being taken on a grand tour of important people like that would have been John Fitzgerald Kennedy. There would have been so many questions for him. Were you able to meet him? Is it in the plan?
No, I wasn't. No, I wasn't able to meet him. I agree with you. I would like to meet him at some point, but he wasn't on the agenda. And yeah, it would be fascinating to sit down and talk to him for sure.
But you did have an encounter with a dog.
Yes, I did have an encounter with a soul who had incarnated. The last life on Earth was as a dog, as a Scotty dog. It was really quite amazing. And I think Albert wanted me to meet this person because there's a lot of people, dog owners, cat owners, that they love their pets, and they often wonder, okay, when Fifi passes away, what happens to her?
One quick thing that I have to ask you at the end of all this, okay? Very important.
Yep.
I can't see my audience tonight. Neither can you. I know, and I'm not psychic, that some of them are going to be shaking their heads, and some of them will be nodding in agreement with you. The ones who are shaking their heads may well be about to send me an email. And some of those emails, because you probably had them yourself, are not entirely complimentary. When you finish something like this, and you sit down with, it's Kathy, isn't it, your wife?
Yes.
What does she say to you? When you get criticism, when you get people saying, this man's nuts, he needs help, he needs assistance, what kind of support does she give you? What does she say?
She just says, don't pay any attention to him. She says everyone's entitled to their own belief. You can't convince all the people all the time. No one can, so don't worry about it. Just ignore it and get on with your life. And so it's very comforting. And that's exactly, to the people, Howard, who are out there who are saying, we think this guy's crazy, and I don't believe what he's saying. What I say to them is, at the end of the day, when you're dead and I'm dead, we'll both know who's telling the truth.
Hey, that's a very good point to park it. Garnet Schulhauser, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll talk again. It's a hard path that you walk, Garnet, but it's an interesting story that you tell. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard.
And we're out of time. This has been The Unexplained. Thank you very much to you for being part of all of this. That was a hell of a story, wasn't it? Thank you very much to my producer, Cass. Thank you very much to Hayley Hayes for the setup on this show. Thank you very much to Holly for doing technical production. Above all, thank you to you for being part of this. My name is Howard Hughes. This has been The Unexplained on Talk Radio. Paul Ross is next. Until next we meet right here in 1 week from now. Please stay safe. Please stay calm. And above all, please, however you do it, please stay in touch.
Talk Radio. Dial up some dialogue.
Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
We've already responsibly scrapped thousands of vehicles on the Ford New for Old scheme. And now we've extended it to any make of vehicle registered before the 31st of December 2010. So you can save between £2,000 and £7,000 on the recommended retail price when you trade in your old vehicle for a new Ford commercial vehicle. And now that includes the Ford Ranger. To find out more, talk to your Ford dealer today. Ford. Together, we go further.
Selected new models excluded. Contract by 31st of March 2018 and registered by 30th of September 2018 at participating dealers. For further T's and C's, visit ford.co.uk/scrappage.
Right now at Wren, all kitchens are half price, plus VAT free when you buy 5 or more fully assembled units. Hurry, offer ends 8 p.m. tonight.
Where do you charge an electric car?
How quickly can I do it?
How far can you go on one charge?
How much can I save?
Can I charge it at home?
Do I need a house with a drive? Can you get an electric shock off them?
If I plug in my mobile phone, will the car's battery run out?
Can they go in car washes?
Got questions about owning an electric car? Get the answers at goultralow.com.
It's your last chance to get up to 50% off sofas in the DFS price snap. Better be quick. Savings end today. DFS.
Hey you! And you, the rather brilliant British business leaders out there. I know you've got a gazillion plates to spin and uptillion things on your to-do list. But let me ask you this, Debs of Doggy Daycare Deluxe Newbury and the team in yet-to-be-named tech startup Ipswich. Who's taking the time to check your bank fees? That's what I thought.
Britain's better when business is thriving. At HSBC, our best tariff promise ensures you're on the right tariff for your business every year. Search HSBC Business Banking to find out more.
Back to the plate spinning.
HSBC. Together we thrive. For businesses up to £2 million turnover on a small business or electronic banking tariff business current account. Promise